Guys, what's going on? My name is Sam, and today we're going to be doing our presentation on Harriet Tubman. So today we're going to just go over her upbringing, then her correlation to the Underground Railroad, following by some big changing moments in her life, and then we're also going to go over how the Fugitive Slave Act affected her, and then her life as a spy. I want to talk to you guys about my interest in Harriet Tubman. So growing up, I've always read books about her. I've always done my book reports on her. She is literally the James Bond of her time. She was an amazing spy, an amazing woman, someone who came from working at a plantation to doing so much more. With that being said, I made a PowerPoint so you guys can get to know a little bit more about Harriet Tubman. Tubman's childhood was like other African Americans of her time. She was born on a plantation in Dorchester County, raised doing housework at the plantation. She was one of 8 children, whipped as a child as early as 5 years old. She ended up moving out to the field and doing physical work instead of the indoor environment. So other interesting facts about her are that her family actually rented her out to 2 different plantations just when she was 5 and 7 years old. So you can only imagine your mother not having the means to support their family, so them having to actually rent out their own child to plantation owners. Harriet Tubman's pivotal point. When Harriet was just 12 years old, she saw a man throwing a weight to a slave that was a fugitive. Being caring and thoughtful, she stepped in between the weight and the man and took the weight to the head. All they had was a bed to put her on while her head laid there bleeding, with the people around her trying to help. At 12 years old, Harriet Tubman was stronger than most adult people, but suffered the consequences as her injuries left her mentally weak and in pain for the rest of her life. This ended up hurting her in the future because slave owners did not want to buy someone who would go in and out of nausea and sleep. The Underground Railroad. This was a network of houses that was set up along several paths leading north that would help fugitives, slaves, stay hidden. They would provide shelter and food for a night or two. After Harriet Tubman escaped slavery in her plantation, she fled north, where she found work cleaning homes. Then she goes back down south to rescue her niece and her children. So this is what's crazy about the Underground Railroad. So they always had to use different trails when going from the south to the north because they had people that were out there with their dogs that were bounty hunters. They were meant to catch these people trying to free the slaves. They didn't want it to happen. So if you look on the map, as you can see right here, the bottom goes from, you can see the lowest ones go from Georgia, those on the right side, and those will go all the way up to Canada. So because the Fugitive Slave Act it started right when Harriet Tubman, also around the time when she started going down and bringing slaves north, she would have to take them all the way up to Canada. So the bottom border from Georgia, that's around 1,000 miles, and that's a straight shot. So them having to go through mountains and rocks and different trails and cross rivers is absolutely mind-blowing. It's just, so if you take the amount of time, let's say they walk about 10 hours a day, they will get there in about 40-something days, 43 days. So 43 days of walking, and a lot of these people didn't have shoes. They wanted to give up. A lot of them did. And the ones who made it were free. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. The Fugitive Slave Act allowed fugitive and freed slaves to be captured and taken back down south and forced into slavery. The way that this affected Harriet Tubman is because this act came out right when she started doing her trips to the south to help other slaves escape. This made the risk factor huge because now she could be taken in the north. Not only this, but instead of being able to drop them off in the bordering free North states, she had to take them all the way to Canada. Harriet TUbman as a spy. When the Civil War started, she offered her services to the Union war effort, worked under Colonel James Montgomery as a nurse, cook, and a spy. She disguised herself as an old lady as she snuck behind the Confederate Army. She was able to get information from slaves for a chance at freedom in return, and sometimes she even offered them cash. She led an army of 300 men alongside the general to invade rice plantations. Harriet Tubman was the first woman in history to lead and plan a military attack. About my research on Harriet Tubman was someone who grew up with so much trauma in her life. After she escaped the madness, she was able to go back and face that trauma face on and go back and help the greater good. And not only that, but become an amazing leader and inspire all the future leaders to come after her.